This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Well, it sure is. We're kicking off another brand new broadcast day here on the Steve Gruber Show, fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom, of course, making me wonder, who do you want in your foxhole? When things get tight, who do you want there next to you? Make sure it's somebody that knows what they're doing, all right? We're burning daylight. Let's get to it. Three big things this hour. Number one, the Super Bowl has picked its halftime performer, a guy who canceled his American concert tour, said he would never do a concert in America again, blamed ICE for his actions. Yet, some guy named Bad Bunny refused to perform at the NFL. They're good with it. Number two, in a bit of good news for the economy, new housing sales have soared to their highest level in years, jumping 20%. That is good news. And number three, let me start here by being crystal clear for anyone listening or watching. Violence aimed at people because you don't like what they say or you don't like how they pray unless they are openly attacking you is not okay. I condemn that violence here and now. I condemn it. We have to be clear about this as conservatives. I make my comments clear after the tragedy in Michigan over the weekend. As we discussed yesterday, 4 people were killed, plus the shooter, in Grand Blanc Township, Michigan, not even an hour from where I live. That comes after a maniac opened fire on a Church of Latter-day Saints, Mormons, and then set the building on fire after ramming his truck into the side of that building. Here's the Grand Blanc police chief after the incident. Listen.
Evil. This was an evil act of violence. That's exactly what this was. And this is not Grand Blanc. This does not define Grand Blanc and who we are. We are a community, and I am confident that together we're going to build a stronger community due to this incident. Now, an update. This left 5 people dead, 8 people injured. As I said, this is an evil act and does not define Grand Blanc or who we are. At this time, what we know is everyone has been accounted for. We still are in the process of clearing out that church, but at this time, everyone is accounted for.
Evil. Evil, exactly the right word for the moment. I mean, what else covers this? A guy rams his truck into the church, opens fire, turns it into a ball of flames. Here's the church engulfed in flames. 2 of those victims died from the fire. 2 others shot and killed. Many others were injured, struggling to recover today. It's the latest targeted assault on a church in America, the latest savage disregard for human life. Churches are often called sanctuaries. It's what they're supposed to be, places where we can rest, worship, find peace, worship our God. Unfortunately for my neighbors in Grand Blanc, church was the opposite of that over the weekend. The opposite. The investigation is still ongoing, but the shooter who was shot down by police has been identified as Thomas Jacob Sanford, a 40-year-old Iraqi veteran. His actions being investigated, we're told, by the FBI and the feds as a targeted act of violence against the LDS Church. Here's Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt with more.
From what I understand, based on my conversations with the FBI director, all they know right now is this was an individual who hated people of the Mormon faith. And they are trying to understand more about this, how premeditated it was, how much planning went into it, whether he left a note. All of those questions have yet to be answered, but certainly will be answered by the FBI.
Yeah, obviously ramming your truck, which was full of IEDs, by the way, into a church, opening fire and lighting the church on fire sure adds up to the hatred towards a specific church and just the latest in such a string of these atrocities. It's dreadful. The Detroit Free Press says that city council candidate Chris Johns spoke with the shooter just days before the tragedy. And Sanford, the shooter, went on an anti-Mormon tirade. Johns just canvassing in the area looking to find some new voters and met Sanford outside his house where he engaged Johns in what he described as a friendly conversation. But Sanford was apparently very forthcoming because he told Johns about his stint in Iraq, his problems with drug abuse in the aftermath of his service, his relationship with a Mormon woman in Utah afterwards. Sanford then mentioned that the Mormon woman tried to make him remove all of his tattoos, and then Sanford turned dark. Told Johns that he believed the Mormon church was the Antichrist. Sounds like quite the motive to me. We'll let the professionals conduct their investigation, but so far that's what it's indicating. Seems like we've got a perfect storm of factors here. Marine vet, served in Operation Iraqi Freedom. could be suffering from some sort of PTSD or other mental health issue. And let me make a note here. There was another mass shooting over the weekend when a different Marine veteran opened fire at a crowd in Southport, North Carolina. 3 people killed there. If you ever needed another reason to hate war, there's one. Even the soldiers who make it back can often come back with the kind of baggage that costs the lives of, well, even more Americans. Sanford also admitted to drug use, something that never leads to good outcomes, which is why politicians should crack down on drug abuse, not enable it, not support it. And then there's his personal bone to pick with the LDS, something we might find out more about in the next few days, but it could go all the way back to that relationship he had with a woman in Utah who apparently wanted him to get rid of his tattoos. But we're seeing those on the left focus on just one thing or two. He's white, and he may have been a Trump supporter. That's all they care about. That's it. In Michigan, you don't register by party, so nothing's for certain, but one Facebook post out there has him in a Trump shirt back in 2020, I believe, before the election. So let me be clear. Trump supporter or not, Sanford turned out to be an evil man who represented the worst in our society. Those who prey on the innocent and the vulnerable, and I condemn it unequivocally. When he rammed his truck into the side of the church, he was no Trump supporter. He was no conservative. He was no MAGA movement type. Just an old-fashioned, depraved killer. Period. That's who he is. That's how he'll be remembered. But guess what? This is not an example of right-wing violence. You've never heard me get up here and call Mormons the Antichrist, of course. It's not something Trump has parroted from the podium for years on end. Stephen Miller isn't instructing conservatives to go to war with the LDS Church. Being a Trump supporter, if he was, is not what motivated him to go out on this rampage. It's not. And I don't remember Trump calling them Nazis and fascists either. But somehow the public wants us to lump in Sanford with the individuals who killed Charlie Kirk or shot up school children in a Catholic church not long ago in Minneapolis. They want them all to be the same. It's both sides, you see. In fact, here's a CNN analyst doing exactly that. Listen.
It may seem obvious that we would know what the motive is, right? And that's where we're being careful, because it would seem obvious that they're going after people of this church, of this faith. But the FBI is not willing to make that link because they haven't seen anything online, anything he said to the family. We may get that later. So that's the distinction. What's really important is whatever, if they do find that motive, it was not made to the public. It didn't seem to be part of his persona. And in this way, it's very similar to what we're seeing recently. Very, very quick radicalization leading to violence, not tied to any known movement or group. And that's the scary part of where we live right now.
Yeah. It is evil. I'm going to stay with that. An evil act for which there is no justification, for which real Americans condemn and stand up and say, we don't accept this. We'll have more after the break on the Steve Gruber Show. All right, back to it now. These are important conversations to have. Important conversation because Charlie Kirk's killer and the Catholic Church shooter and dozens of other left-wing radicals were connected by something. Left-wing talking points. Calling anyone who was on the right or voted for President Trump Nazis, fascists, and of course white supremacists. And they were also, these shooters, these killers, supporting the transgender agenda. There is a connection there. There's a thread there, you see. The guy attacking LDS, he's a white guy. Okay. They just want to forget all this other stuff, but we won't. We will not. Absolutely will not. I'm not Mormon, and I'm not Catholic, but I grieve for those who lost their lives just because they were. I condemn the violence against them. They were Americans, all right? What happened to them is inexcusable. I do that because it's the only decent thing to do, you see. And yet we've seen thousands on the left celebrate the death of Charlie Kirk. They still are. Because he had a different opinion. They smear him. Same names, Nazi, fascist, white supremacist, same thing. There are bumper stickers out here now reading, "Make assassinations great again." Not a joke. People are putting "Make assassinations great again" on their cars. I mean, what's wrong with you? if you voluntarily put that message on your car? How morally bankrupt can you get? Well, sleazy, slimy Swalwell goes further than the CNN contributors and tries to imply that Donald Trump is the cause of all violence because he claims Trump is holding James Comey accountable. This is really a masterclass in strange spin. Listen.
Americans, we're seeing an escalation of mass shootings again. Obviously, we had the Kirk assassination and a political assassination on an ICE facility last week, shootings over the weekend in North Carolina and in Michigan. And so if law enforcement is pulled off the case to work on the president's political opponents, what does that mean for the rest of us? That's what concerns me. And then,
wow. Give it a break, will you? Swalwell's just scared he's next on the chopping block for his crimes against the American people. And remember, Comey was indicted by a grand jury of his peers in deep blue Northern Virginia. I mean, there is that. Donald Trump didn't vote on the grand jury, as I understand it. And then there's the obvious, the low-hanging fruit, the attack on gun rights for Americans everywhere, which is obviously predictable. This Michigan politician blames gun violence, not the violent man who pulled the trigger, of course. Listen.
What in the world can we do to stem this tide of gun violence?
Well, first of all, my heart goes out to the families affected in the Mormon community in Grand Blanc and across the country. I was in Grand Blanc just 3 days ago, and this is a peaceable community. To see it torn apart like that is awful. I'm also a physician and epidemiologist, and I know that when you have the scourge of a thing that harms people, you have a responsibility to start asking, how do you actually solve that? And you look at all of the string of violence that we've seen, they tend to have something in common. And I think we have a responsibility as a country to stand together, to stand up for our children, for our elders, for folks just going to church on a Sunday, to say that enough is enough. We need to have a conversation about gun violence, right? The Second Amendment doesn't mean any gun for anyone, anywhere, anytime. It means that we understand that there was a space for this, but not this. Not that people walk into their church on a Sunday and get gunned down. And so we need to have that conversation. We need to have it urgently.
Yeah, let's have that conversation. You'll find that if anyone in that church could have stopped the gunman with their own gun before police got there, we might be telling a different story, or not telling it at all because the media never covers those stories. When was the last time you heard him talk about places like Sugar Land, Texas, for example? It was just this summer in June when another deranged gunman opened fire on a church here in Michigan, but was stopped from killing anyone, because one of the armed men in the church shot him dead on the spot. Remember that story? Retired law enforcement laid him out right there in the church, prevented what could have been a mass shooting. Bam. Friends, I don't like where I'm seeing this country headed. I don't. Where you can be killed in cold blood for your political beliefs or your religious beliefs. You tell me, how shocked would you be if tomorrow I told you right here that someone was gunned down in the street for wearing a red hat? Just some regular guy shot and killed wearing a red hat and nothing more. How shocked would you be if this political violence of calling people Nazis and fascists trickled down to that level? You've been warned. I actually think it's inevitable at this point. When people say making assassinations great again on their cars, people have been dehumanized to the point of no return in the minds of some of these people. Yeah, I don't think that's a tragedy too far in our future. It's why you should stay armed. Whenever and wherever you can. If you can get a legal carry license, get one. I'm not going to give up my right to defend myself in a dangerous world, and sadly, that's exactly where we're living today. You may not be a Mormon, but I like how my friend Jack Posobiec says it. Listen to this.
That this is demonic. And, you know, as Christians, look, guys, you know, I'm more than happy to have the, you know, the various debates and gosh, we've had them on the show so many times. It's like we've got Catholics, we've got Mormons, we've got evangelicals, but at the end of we've had them with Charlie so many times. But at the end of the day, when we're all under attack, we're all under attack. And that's what it comes down to. This is demonic influence. There's no question about that. Demons are writhing in pain when people gather together to worship Christ Jesus. That's the end of it. And it almost feels like when the switch is flipped, that you're going to see, unfortunately, more and more of this.
Stand up against evil. Speak up for truth. Keep yourself armed. Again, you have been warned. A lot of choices when it comes to who you choose for your cell phone service. I realize there are some new ones popping up all the time, but here's the truth. There's only one that boldly stands in the gap for every American that believes that freedom is worth fighting for, and that, my friends, is Patriot Mobile. More than a dozen years now, Patriot Mobile has been on the front lines fighting for our God-given rights and freedoms while also providing exceptional nationwide cell phone service with access to all three of the main networks. Don't just take my word for it. Ask the hundreds of thousands of Americans who've made the switch are now supporting causes they believe in. Patriot Mobile, Christian, conservative, wireless network. And if you go to patriotmobile.com/Gruber, you're going to get your first month for free. It's easy to switch. Support the people that support this program and support you. patriotmobile.com/Gruber. Use the promo code Gruber. First month free. What are you waiting for? I'll be right back.